Back once again, Mike Seeklander with Team Wilson Combat, and today I want to talk to you about distances in terms of fighting. So you're carrying your trusty Glock, like my Glock 19, converted by Wilson Combat with a bunch of cool stuff on it, including my company logo, by the way, that matches my shirt. And one of the things that I want you to focus on or realize is that a fight doesn't necessarily occur at this distance or at this distance. Sometimes a fight might be here. Sometimes a fight might be here. Sometimes a fight may be back here, right? And the point there is, with a handgun, one of the things that I think that we fail to do enough is train appropriate shooting extensions at the right distance. We spend literally probably countless hours dry firing and live firing and extending the handgun. And what I find with my students is the second I put them at this distance, whether it's a role-playing scenario or a live fire shooting drill, at this distance, the first thing they do with their handgun is this, right? Now, if my guy here, the bad guy, right, doesn't want to be shot, and I'm at this distance, and I stick that handgun out there just like this, what does he or she have the opportunity to do? Well, in your mind, you should be saying, well, he can easily grab the gun. Matter of fact, if his or her arms are this long, he could probably grab the gun all the way out to this distance by simply taking a step and reaching for my firearm. So the problem with extending the handgun is I'm literally extending the gun saying, hey, here's my gun, please take it, or foul the presentation process, or foul the draw process. All of those things are going to be bad things at this distance. So what I need you to get in the habit of doing is understanding distance, okay? So what I want to do is I want to do kind of a walk and drill and show you where the appropriate extension of the handgun should probably be at different distances. So let me go ahead and get full distance, right? At this distance, and right now I'm probably right around 4.5 or 5 yards from the target. A full extended two-handed platform is probably completely appropriate because he or she is at a distance where they would have to take several steps and reach out to grab my gun. Now, if I take my body and I step just a couple steps closer, probably give or take right here in your mind, you can imagine now I'm at a distance where if they had their hands extended out and they took one big step, they could probably get their hands on my handgun. So here we're going to go to a different shooting platform that I call the high ready or the close quarter position. So we're simply going to take the gun, we're going to retract it straight back to our body, and we're going to keep the muzzle horizontal to the ground. Now notice when I do this, I keep two hands on the grip of the handgun just like I'm shooting with my standard two-handed grip. I didn't change the grip of the handgun, I didn't change the position of the hands, and for me personally, because I have somewhat tight wrists, that requires somewhat of a slight cant to the left. But I'm bringing the gun all the way back to my chest, and because the gun is at what I describe a high ready position, I can still see in my periphery exactly where the gun's pointed. If you end up taking your handgun and moving it down too low, like down here, I can't see the handgun anymore. I can't really tell where it's pointed. And the lower the handgun is, the lower those hits are going to be on the threat's body, okay? So you're going to take your handgun, retract it straight to the rear, keeping your muzzle horizontal to the ground, and if you had to measure, you'd probably be about 2 fingers length from the bottom of your chin. That's your appropriate distance. Handgun is slightly canted. One last thing about this position is the gun is not so close where if the slide were cycling, it would hit my chest. So I have to have enough distance of the handgun so I could be firing, because this is not just a protected position, this is also a shooting position, okay? So this would be appropriate. Now, if I continue to close the distance though, at about this spot, this individual could still reach out with their hands and grab the handgun. So once again, where my close quarter position worked from here, it doesn't work from here. And I need to continue to pull the handgun closer. Now to do that, I'm going to take my support hand and I'm going to start to roll it literally right off the handgun. And notice how the hand comes right up next to the side of the handgun. I don't take this hand and place it in front of the muzzle, right? So I'm literally rolling my support hand off of the handgun, and I'm retracting the handgun into an extremely close quarter position. Now, if you're looking at my position, there are a couple things that should stand out. Number one, the support hand that came off the gun that may literally be going into his or her eyes. I may be stiff arming their chest. I may be punching or striking them in the throat. And there are a lot of different technical parts of that equation. And the strong hand has literally retracted the handgun to the point where I'm pulling it as far back as I can. When you do this, you should feel a lot of tension in the back of your arm. So take your handgun and literally pull it as far back as you can. A couple key points about this position. Number one, the muzzle is at a slight downward angle, right? The reason for that is my lead hand or my support hand is now out here stiff arming or eye gouging or striking or palm striking or whatever else above a plane of existence. So I need to keep the handgun muzzle below a plane of existence. It would not be smart for me to try to roll the handgun to get center mass shots when my hand is out there potentially keeping them away from me, stiff arming or doing whatever else. Now, this is not going to be a static situation, right? So kind of imagine, if you will, this person is trying to throw strikes, trying to get to my handgun, maybe trying to parry my arm and get it off. So I'm going to have to continually pump this arm to keep them off me. Now, this position with the support hand allows me to stiff arm and pump and strike and eye gouge or whatever else, boom, 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 but continue to shoot. And my target area for this particular technique is going to be that low pelvic, groin, lower body area, because my other hand is up here in the eyes or the throat or the chest or whatever else. Okay, so once again, once I get to a certain point, hand is going to roll off the handgun. I'm going to retract it literally as far as I can where I can stiff arm and I could be shooting somewhere in the pelvic girdle of the target. Now, in order for the gun to run, one of the things you're going to have to do is I'm going to have to maintain a slight offset of the handgun where I'm placing the thumb between the frame of the handgun and my body. If I take the slide of the gun and press it up against my body and try to shoot, that's going to stop the slide from moving and I'm going to have malfunctions. Conversely, if I take that handgun like some people do and rotate it to the outside, the problem with this is this allows someone to get their hand on the handgun very easy. It's harder for me to protect it. So I like to take my handgun, literally press it up next to my side so I'm indexing it off my body and retract it as far to the rear as possible, but in a position where those shots are still going to hit that lower pelvic area of the target, okay? So we have three positions here. Position number one is called the extreme close quarter position, where the lead hand might be striking, stiff arming or doing something else. It may also be back here defending my head against a strike or a punch or a club. Position number two is your close quarter position, something where you're a little farther away where they still can't reach your gun. Gun is compressed, muzzle is horizontal to the ground, and I have this handgun as close to my body as possible. This still allows me, boom, 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 to get those shots. Notice how the horizontal position allows me to fire. And then, of course, last but not least is a distance where I have my ability to fully extend the handgun and get hits, okay? So think about those different distances. Full extension, close quarter or compressed extension, and extreme close quarter, extremely compressed position, and the utilization of the other hand to keep the threat off of you, which, believe it or not, if you try that stiff arm technique and if you do it right, and this is a pretty short video trying to explain it, it's pretty effective overall, okay? So these are the technical positions I want you to consider, because once again, in closing, a fight is not just a certain distance. A fight is all of these distances, and you need to have tools to utilize to engage your hand with your handgun at these appropriate distances, okay? So there you have some content and some dry fire related drilling. For example, you could practice this dry fire, and in a future video I'm going to show you some live fire drills where you can practice these positions in the live fire range setting working the skills in context. So in the series of dry fire drills in the lecture, as well as the live fire drill, I'm talking to you about close quarter and extreme close quarter shooting position. And folks, I thought it was really important that you understand the context of these close quarter fights. Understand that I want to make sure that you don't misunderstand that we're teaching you a shooting position. How you get to that shooting position is a completely different story. For example, I'm not a big fan of someone teaching the draw process off a strike, thinking you can strike someone off and get to a close quarter shooting position and make that play out. Because I've tried that, lots and lots of times in training, and it typically doesn't work. There's a great instructor out there, Craig Douglas, a good friend of mine that has taught the concept of same side access and control. It's a completely different subject that you need to explore in terms of the close quarter shooting position. So the drills that I'm talking about here, the shooting positions that I'm talking about, assume that you've already got the gun into the fight. The gun is already in your hand and the distance closed for whatever reason. There we can use the technique of the close quarter position and the extreme close quarter position. And last but not least, I want to remind you of safety. In terms of these drills, when I'm separating my hands in the dry fire explanation as well as the live fire drill itself, never at any point in time am I or should you be covering your parts, your body parts, your hands, your arm, or whatever else. And that includes the separation of the hands where you're using the fingers to eye gouge or strike or whatever else, as well as getting that support hand back on the handgun. So pay particular attention to safety in these drills. And if you're not willing or able to comply with all of the safety rules that go along with close quarter type shooting and this kind of drilling, please don't do it live fire. Hey there, I hope you liked that content and learned a thing or two from it. Make sure you subscribe because we're releasing stuff all of the time with one goal in mind, and that's to make you better.